It is the breakdown, and you know what that means. Yeah, it's Wednesday. That's what it means. Thanks for being here with us on Canadian Football Perspective. He is Derek Taylor at DT on SC. Of course, catch him on the Sports Cage, as always, on CKRM out there in Saskatchewan. And of course, I am Marshall Ferguson at TSN_Marsh. Thank you, as always, to Fox 40 for supporting the podcast here. Of course, in English, that is supporting the podcast, as they have given us great opportunity to be able to bring you Canadian football coverage unique and geared directly towards you to get you ready for game day, just like all of their gear. Go over to fox40shop.com for Fox 40 gear, whistles, and coaching boards. Use the code CFP15 at checkout for 15% off your order. I thought, by the way, Dave Foxcroft of Fox 40 did a great job in that BC Ottawa game, because that could have got out of hand really quickly late on Saturday evening, because it is just that Ottawa team trying to keep pace with a team that's getting return touchdowns and throwing deep passes successfully. DT, it was a war of attrition again on Saturday night for the Red Blacks, wasn't it?
It's too early for me to gloat, but I mean, we're a third of the way through the season, and Ottawa has one win, and it was the flukiest of wins. Yeah, I'm getting close to victory lap. I'm warm. I'm stretching my hamstrings, getting ready for victory laps. As I look back at all my over/under win total bets for the season, Hamilton under 9.5. Okay, that's coming through because they've already got 3 losses. I feel pretty strongly that Ottawa under 3.5 is coming through, because
it was at 3.5, and it's still going to hit
3.5. Yeah, like they were 3-15, right? They were 3-15 in 2019, and they lost talent. And you go, oh well, they're going. The better said, oh, they're going over. Like, they are absolutely not going over 3.5. 3 wins in 18 or 4 wins in 14 with less talent. Oh, but magic and coaching and boop. Like, at some point, somebody's going to have to tackle Lucky Whitehead. And I love Lapo and I love Mike Benavides. They're not allowed to tackle by rule, right? Not like that New York Jets strength coach who tripped a gunner on the sidelines. I don't know, man.
If you've seen Benny on the sidelines this season, if that dude gets a clean shot on Lucky Whitehead, I don't know if Lucky Whitehead is going to exist anymore.
That old ESPN segment, Jacked Up, you're thinking it would be that?
I don't know what Benny would do if he got a hold of one of these guys that's running back a deep return or a nice long run ripped off against the Red Blacks defense. But that dude is jacked. He is. You could rip somebody in half right now.
And by the way, his mustache is glorious.
Oh yeah.
It looks good.
It's not even November. Like, I'm so sad that. First of all, I'm sad that we don't have a normal playoff year where it's like all of the mustaches across the league just magically appear in time for playoffs, because that's always great. But I'm a little bit sad that Ottawa's not going to be a threat deep into November, where we're really going to care a lot about their season. Because if he's doing anything with Movember for men's cancer and raising money, that dude could raise a lot of money in Ottawa. That's a town that loves to fundraise, whether it be because of the political influence or not. And I'm telling you, he would have a great platform to be able to use that for some cash that people would be able to put to very, very good use. But it is. Ottawa's in a tough situation. I think we all understand that right now. We, as you say, projected that. But I mean, there's a lot going on around the league. That the end of the triple header, maybe a little bit slow, maybe a little bit off, but a great weekend of football, I thought, overall, week 6. And depending on what fan base you're a part of, you might disagree. If you're Hamilton, if you're Saskatchewan, if you are, I guess, Edmonton, playing at home and losing against Calgary, who you despise, then you might not feel great. But if you take a step back, because I don't cheer for anybody, I just cheer for stories and for players and individual performances and coaches that I love as well, because Dave Dickinson, thank you for all the GIF content. Just wonderful. Just wonderful. Week in, week out, the GIF content from Dickinson is almost unparalleled, because he just has no filter on the sideline whatsoever. And it's so great. He's so pure and honest. And so I always appreciate that. But I also got a great shot that they got from the CFL and TSN this week of Orlando Steinauer when Michael Domagala hit the uprights, and he's just staring out onto the field, confused, like, did I really just see that? Did that actually happen? But this is the only podcast in the world, really, that you come to be able to get a full breakdown of Isaac Harker or David Watford. And we can give that to you because Hamilton and Saskatchewan, where we are, maybe we will do that later on in the show as we bounce around all the different quarterback topics. But I do want to begin with the question of Dominique Davis in Ottawa as we bounce through these QB spots, because You have some rather strong feelings about Dominique Davis and what is happening with the quarterback of the nation's capital now that Matt Nichols has been sent to the bench.
Let me start with Matt Nichols is better. Matt Nichols should be playing if Matt is healthy. If he's not, give him time, get him healthy. Here's my thing with Dominique Davis, and we watched last season. He had an amazing game week 2 against the Riders, and the rest of the season was an absolute living nightmare. Yeah. I tuned into that game because I called the early game in the triple-header, and then I tuned into the game and saw Farhan and Dunnigan doing it. And as I'm watching this game, I just think, game's about to start. Here comes the Ottawa offense onto the field. This should not be happening. Dominique Davis should not be starting a football game. The very first pass of the game, he just about put Ryan Davis in an ambulance. Like, he throws it, and it's a 6 miles high, and Davis, bless his heart, jumps to his absolute maximum and tries to pull it in, gets undercut, and lands on his neck / back of his head. And I go, yeah, even if it's not an interception or a dropped interception, it's a hospital ball. And, I'm leading. There's so many times you see quarterbacks not lead their receivers into trouble, and Dominic leads his receivers into trouble. And he just about put Ryan Davis in a hospital, and he had 3 picks dropped in that game, and he threw a pick, and he threw there are so many problems with the pick going into halftime. There are so many problems from a coaching level to a what are you throwing that ball for level. At this, I've reached the point where, honestly, I just think it's mean to keep putting Dominic Davis on the field. And I met Dominic once. I interviewed him once. I like him a lot. I feel like if I played for the Red Blacks, I would gravitate to this guy and I would want to be like him. He cannot quarterback in the Canadian Football League anymore. And to keep asking him to do it is just, it's mean. You're being teased forever by the potential of a 32-year-old quarterback who threw 5 touchdowns and 14 picks last season. Well, he can do this, and we're going to talk about all the parts of it. But at some point, you just have to sit a guy down, because you have this conversation, 50 times a year. Sit a guy down and go, this job you really want to do, you can't do it anymore. We'd love to see if there's a role for you on the team, but you cannot be the quarterback of this team anymore, because it ain't working, and there's nothing to suggest it will work. And to be on the losing end of a 50-point beatdown, whatever the final score of that game was, it ain't right. And it isn't good for the league, and it isn't good for the Red Blacks, and it doesn't help the Red Blacks in any fashion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because his raw skill set, the arm strength, he threw a curl ball in the game against Montreal in week 5 that looked like a real true professional quarterback. Sometimes he takes a snap and shotgun. He takes a quick little 3-step machine gun drop where it's bang, 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 hits his back foot, and he rips it and it's on target. But to what you're saying, I couldn't agree more. And I hate to say it because I've been trying to champion him and hold out hope and see where he could go. But it's the ball. It's not even necessarily the ones that get intercepted that are really frustrating, because you throw an interception, whatever, what the hell? It's quarterback play. Unless you're freaky accurate and always make the right decision and always know what defense they're in, you're going to throw the odd interception here or there. But for me, it's not even the high interception total, which it is with him. It's the, as you say, hospital balls. Yeah, it's the ones that just make you twist your head. Like that's the real problem that I have with Dominique Davis when I watch him. And I'm with you. I interviewed him too a couple of years ago. Fun story. Went from the Jayhawk conference, made his way to ECU, and then made his way up and bounced around and was looking like he's a good dude. This is nothing personal whatsoever. But when you 3 or 4 times a game, I would say, when I've watched him play 2019 and 2021, he just does things that make you go, man, I just would never do that. And again, I'm not one to judge. I ain't playing in the CFL, and I was never near good enough to be able to do that. But you watch the quarterback play of, there's these varying degrees of recklessness and the success that they have with efficiency. It's like Trevor Harris is way over here, where it's like everything's under 10, 15 yards for the most part, takes the odd shot, Ellingson, Walker. Now he's got these new toys that he's playing around with. And on the other side, you've got like Jeremiah Masoli at his most reckless, where it's like, whoa, I have no idea what's happening. And Bo is kind of like in the middle, where it's like he's reckless, but he's efficient. And Riley at times can be the same as that. And to me, Davis is like, he's in the reckless scale. He's not efficient. Like, we know this. He's in the reckless scale, but it's like, I don't even know how to paint it. It's a weird combination of he's so reckless that he shouldn't be able to get away with any of it, but somehow he does. And he does just enough to frustrate you where you feel like he's putting people in bad situations, which is hurting their offense as a whole. But it's also an offense that's got so many missing parts and struggling, and offensive line shuffled around, and all, like it's a bad situation. And I hate banging on Ottawa
Oh,
for this.
for sure.
So you know, I hate banging on quarterbacks the same way when they're in a bad situation. But I also have seen him play in Winnipeg, where they weren't the reigning Grey Cup champions, but I was calling a game for the Ticats where David Watford, or sorry, where Dominique Davis had to come in, and I mean, it was the same thing. It was wow, that's a great throw. 2 plays later, throws it right into somebody's chest, or throws a fade ball into double coverage where the free safety is rolling over the top, or misses a crossing route on a kind of like a climb route at 12, 15 yards, sails it over the head, free safety's there, catches it like a punt. There's just these little things where you just I'm with you. I hate to admit that I'm with you on this one because I don't want to be with you on this one, but I don't think it's right for Ottawa to send him out. And I don't know why they don't take a look around and try to find some solutions, even if it's raw, new, fresh, completely unseasoned when it comes to the CFL or anything else. I did get sent by somebody tonight an image of Duck Hodges, who had a cup of coffee in the NFL, holding a ball that looked like a CFL ball and driving on an interstate with his car. So maybe, I don't know if he's a negotiation list guy, if they're going to announce something, but if anybody wants to check him out, Duck Hodges apparently has a CFL ball and was on a highway, and someone sent it to me and said, "Hey, is he coming up?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not a reporter. I don't give a damn." I'm like, "Hey, if when he gets here, I'll do some target charts, and then you can message me, and I'll tell you what's happening with him." But yeah, it's Ottawa quarterbacking at large. Man, bad spot. When you got a veteran that's dinged, that can't play, that's not good enough, that might be injured, might not be injured. We're not really sure. Might have had a dead arm coming into training camp. Arbuckle doing his thing in Toronto, where you probably should have had him if you were doing things the correct way. Backup quarterback who's not really good enough to be a backup quarterback, that's just going to be reckless with the football and throw interceptions. No real contingency plan, no real future. You got a coaching staff that's there, that's set up, ready to go, and you got nobody to access the strengths that they have available in developing players, because I don't think there's any development that's going to be happening when you're trying to find your feet. In the CFL, coaching staffs can get overhauled once every 2-3 years max a lot of the time, unless you're O'Shea basically in Winnipeg at this point, and maybe Orlando Steinauer. But when you're losing the amount of games that they're losing, how are they possibly going to give LaPolice the correct opportunity with the right quarterback to show improvement before people start calling for his head in 2 years? And that's just disappointing, but that's the reality.
None of this is LaPolice's fault.
No, I agree.
This is all who's not collecting any talent for my players to play with and my coaches to coach. The irony of the whole thing is, I think I would, in a 2-quarterback league, I might be a little scared of this, but we see different ways that teams have approached this. You can only carry 2 quarterbacks, or you can only count 2 quarterbacks, right? The Riders carry Cody Fajardo and Isaac Harker, and it's very clear that if Cody's playing, Isaac will not play in any fashion. Winnipeg carries Zach Collaros and Sean McGuire. McGuire will come in and do the short yardage stuff. And in the case of the Banjo Bowl, he'll come in short yardage and throw a 50-yard bomb to Nick Dembski because Buck Pierce stole it right from Paul LaPolice and Chris Strevler. And it was oh my God, it's the CFL. It's fantastic. I think Dominique Davis can be your number 2 quarterback, because he doesn't, I just pulled up his running stats from 19. He doesn't design to run a ton, or didn't in Ottawa, but 100% on his quarterback sneaks. That's pretty nice. You have a quarterback sneak guy who could, if you wanted to, throw the ball. If Winnipeg could do it with Strevler, somebody could do it with Dominique Davis. Strevler is actually, in my numbers, less accurate than Dominique Davis. And Strevler has enough other stuff that he got to the NFL. So I think there's a role for him in a number 2 situation. It always requires you have to have a number 1. Your number 3 has to be your number 1.
Yeah,
if number 1 is hurt.
That's interesting, because that to me is what just happened to Michael O'Connor. We just saw listed as the backup, starter goes out. Listen, we like you, but we don't like you that much. And you go with somebody else. But again, it's like the number 3, I believe, in in Ottawa is the guy who's been doing the Lamar Jackson impersonation on the practice roster of the Ravens the last couple of years. His name escapes me right now, but like, I don't think their number 3 has the ability to jump in and be a number 1 either. And again, that speaks to roster building and having a plan. And here's the real damning thing to me. And I hate the fact that I'm probably going to end up saying this 5 million times on this podcast network over the next 9 months leading into the next season, is how on earth do you go into a season, all respect to Matt Nichols, but like, the dude has been dinged up consistently throughout his career, whether it be fair or not. And I hate the idea of, well, he's injury plagued or he's, he's likely to get injured. I don't like that, because injuries are most of the time freakish. Unless you go to a person's body and you say they are prone to breaking down because they have structural damage from the past, then maybe. But Matt Nichols has been dinged, and it's not a great roster. You probably have to anticipate, if you are Ottawa, well, at some point, we're probably going to have to play someone else. And your grand plan, your recruiting, your free agent signing was Dominique Davis, who threw all those interceptions for you in 2019. And no longer you have Jonathan Jennings. You go with this third string quarterback who clearly doesn't have enough experience to understand how to play the CFL game as of yet. Well, he's not coming in to be your starting quarterback. So what is the plan? Like, there was just no plan on what happened if Nichols got dinged?
There are times where it just seems like the only thing I can come up with is the GM and the coach are not on the same page. James Franklin went to Toronto, and I thought, well, the way Trestman talked about Franklin, it was very clear he didn't want him, but he got him because Jim Pop brought him in. Paul LaPolice did not keep Dominic Davis in Winnipeg, and now he's got him in Ottawa. Yeah. This has got to be the GM and the coach are on different pages about this. Why would Winnipeg have ever let him go if Paul LaPolice loved him? Ergo, he doesn't love him. Taryn Christian and Caleb Evans are on their practice roster, the Red Blacks. I don't know anything other than they're 6'2" and about 210 to 220 and 23 and 24 years old. But it can't, honestly, people say, well, look at this. I called the game he had against the Riders, 30 of 39 for 354 and 3 touchdowns, and it was a top 5 in the CFL game in 2019. But pro sports is not about what you can do. It's about how often you do what you can do. And you could be, for one game, I'm going to be the best quarterback in the world. And for the other 13 this season, I'm going to lose the game for us. Is not a guy you need on your team. It's fun to see it happen the one time, but ultimately there's no way that Davis gives them a better chance to win than even this Matt Nichols. As hurt as Nichols must be, there's no way, because Nichols can at least avoid turning the ball over 5 times a game. Davis, 2019, threw an interceptable pass every 16 passes. That is so rough.
Yeah.
That is so rough. Just have to stop.
Let's wrap the Dominique Davis thought here by playing a quick game of who would you rather have as your starting quarterback? Okay. Dominique Davis, Isaac Harker. Dominique Davis, David Watford.
Oh, Watford probably. I just don't know. I just don't. Watford's at least a question mark.
That's an unfair question. Yeah. We don't know enough about David Watford. I'm with you on that.
But I know Dominic Davis. I know what Davis is about. So I'd be curious to see Watford.
Dominique Davis, Nathan Rourke.
Nathan Rourke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Nathan. I know Nathan can run the ball, and I saw a little bit. But again, I know what Davis is, and if he was 24, different deal. He's 32 years old. He's a finished product, and he might be finished.
And the last one I got for you here, Dominique Davis, Nick Marshall.
Has Marshall ever thrown the ball, or was he just a sneak guy under Chris Jones? It'd be funny to see.
I imagine there's still some magic in that arm somewhere. It's amazing because he is such a naturally moving defensive back. But like, I watched that dude play at Auburn, and I was just awestruck with his athleticism and his ability to operate that offense. Because was that Chiswick or Gus Malzahn that was there at that point when he was running around and doing that with, I think it was Trey Mason. They had a bunch of backs at the time that he was working with, and they were running all this full house stuff. And They were running the quadruple option, essentially inside zone. You can pull, you can run, you can pitch, or you can throw it to the outside to a receiver who's just hanging on the sideline 5 yards down the field in case the corner runs up on the triple option. It's just they were running such good stuff there, and I loved watching him play. And it's so funny to me every week when I'm watching a CFL game, and I'm just like, oh yeah, defensive back. Oh, here's another last one for you. Even though he's been out on the COVID list in one game and all that stuff, Dominique Davis or Armonte Edwards. Speaking of great college quarterbacks that were mobile.
Man, one of the great college victories of all time at the hand of Armonte Edwards. I know what Davis is. There are a lot of quarterbacks for whom I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is for Nick Arbuckle. I don't know what the answer is. Yeah, I don't know honestly, I don't know what the answer is for Dane Evans either. Yeah. But I just know what it is for Dominique Davis. And if you have no talent around you, who's going to lift that team up at all on offense? And I don't, because I like Kenny Stafford. I hope it's Kenny Stafford who they recently signed, but everything just looks like 2-12.
How many? I want to move off of Ottawa here, but this is such an interesting variety of topics to me that circle around them. One of which is we saw them sign like 6 receivers as of the other day. How many people do you think catch a pass for the Ottawa Redblacks in 2021? Because to me, I'm like, I don't know if Wesley Lewis has a target or a catch yet, but I know off the top of my head, obviously Bahar, Peterman, RJ Harris, I believe Smallwood might have had a catch early on. I don't think Sharon Peake caught anything, but they tried to throw it to him. He just didn't make any plays back in that week 4 game that I called against BC.
1 for 5 for Sharon Peake. Okay,
good. So he's on the list. So how many people do we have for right now for the Ottawa Redblacks catching passes on the year? Because the amount of player movement I would expect they're going to have, there's going to be just a bunch of dudes with 3 catches by the end of the year.
I have currently 11 in my database. It hasn't been necessarily updated for this week. Hopefully the CFL they don't have week 6 stats in there, but right now it's 11. I'm going to conservatively say 19. The over-under is 18.5.
Okay, yeah. Thanks to our friends at, I'm going to give anybody a shout out, TSN Edge. Eh?
The good folks at TSN Edge, the prop masters say, take the over on 18.5 receivers. Having a pass completed.
Check out DT's work on TSN Edge. He's doing good stuff over there alongside Aaron Krolnick and lots of other people that are working very hard to build that thing up.
Can I brag for just briefly? Of course. We've done this segment for 6 weeks now. The player prop bets we've recommended, 21-10 so far.
Wow.
Boom.
Man, that is nice. That's for real. We want to make some money. Go and play those odds then. That's good stuff. All right, let's change it up. We talked a lot about Ottawa here, and that's a lot of sad stuff and down stuff and all the rest. I would like to flip the script here and talk about Winnipeg because they feel like they are the class of the Canadian Football League right now. DT, you've just seen them in person twice in back-to-back weeks, and I think we understand what Winnipeg is about at this point. Like, it's the overwhelming defense, and it's Andrew Harris being able to get after it and all the rest when he's not ripping helmets off. And for me, I just look at Winnipeg and I'm kind of amazed. And the reason I say this is not very often. I was just talking about coaching staffs and the turnover that you get across the Canadian Football League. Not very often do you get a team that wins the Grey Cup that's kind of thrown together. They've got a lot of free agents that have signed back the last couple of years, but the important piece is thrown together. Kicking game this year, not great. The quarterback play has been exceptional as Zach has gotten a full year, and I know that you are proudly out there on Collaros Island. And so I just look at this and I think we don't usually have the rollover from one year to the next. Now throw in the fact that we missed a year because of COVID, and the fact that they essentially took the first month outside of a loss against Toronto in Toronto. They essentially took the first month and just confirmed, oh yeah, that Grey Cup, that wasn't a 3-week run. That's who we are.
Yeah.
And the idea that they have been able to confirm that and do it against quality opponents. I mean, Hamilton week 1 slapped them, said, yeah, whatever. You guys, this isn't a Grey Cup rematch. This is us just getting after it and doing to you what we did in the Grey Cup. Then Saskatchewan back-to-back at their place, sure, I don't give a damn. Like, Toronto comes into our place, no chance. We go to Toronto, we get a weird loss, but I've been in amazement of how they've carried over at a time where I never thought there would be any carryover.
Well, they got their big stars to take massive pay cuts, right? Honestly, that was watching this happen. I thought, if Zach Collaros is in one piece, this team's the favorite in the West, because virtually every other team, Saskatchewan had to deal with personnel losses, right? Cam Judge, Charleston Hughes on the offense for other reasons, but other teams had to give guys raises because they earned them, and they lost guys because of it. Somehow, some way, Kyle Walters, Mike O'Shea, Wade Miller, the whole crew convinced Adam Bighill, Willie Jefferson, and Zach Collaros to take six-figure pay cuts, according to the reports. And okay, what if you had to pick three guys that you wanted back on that team? You might have also wanted, if you wanted Stanley Bryant, cool, but those guys were in your top four of guys you wanted back, right? And you go, okay, well, that's a great start. They got everybody else in there. Here is Jackson Jeffcoat. Oh, by the way, Jonathan Kongbo. Oh, remember how great a piece Toby Antigua is? Well, he's our fifth end or whatever.
Dude,
off the bench.
I'm seeing people make plays on their defensive line in the Banjo Bowl that I don't even know who they are. Like, and they're getting it. Who was the defensive tackle that planted Harker on that one play?
Because Sales 96, Casey Sales.
Yeah, no, it's not Sales, because he's the XFL guy that came up. It wasn't Steven Richardson. It was a tackle that was wearing a number in the 90s that had a bit of a fire hydrant body similar to Steven Richardson that I've never heard of the guy before. And I'm like, so now you've got Jackson Jeffcoat, Willie Jefferson, Teodric Hansen coming in, making plays, getting into the backfield, chasing people down. You got, Toby Antigua being the fifth guy. You got Jonathan Kongbo flying off the edge as a freak athlete. And now we've got this random dude hitting people in the backfield that I've never heard of before, because inevitably, because of all the names I just mentioned, he's getting single coverage. Like, he's getting a single blocker put in front of him likely. So it's so incredible to see the way
Ricky Walker.
Ricky Walker, there you go. Yes, beautiful. Ricky Walker.
Yeah. 6'2", 287, first year Virginia Tech.
Fire hydrant. Way to go, Hokies.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me on offense. They're hitting on all cylinders. Zach goes 18 of 22. 2 of his 4 incompletions. One was a knockdown. The other was a throwaway. So it's the most efficient football that you can play. I mean, it's just wild.
I was talking to somebody there because I was in town for the game, and I was talking to somebody. He said, we're doing this without Steven Richardson. I'm like, that's a real good point, because that dude clogs it up in the middle, right? And there's this perception that is Winnipeg the healthiest team in the league. Well, sort of, if you compare it to 4 Achilles injuries and stuff. But Kyrie Wilson has been hurt. Mercy Maston out for the year. They had to trade for Alden Darby, which turned out to be a fantastic trade because Toronto waived the guy that they acquired. Like, they should have had Bryant Mitchell on that team. Again, another conversation with a guy like you guys could have had Bryant Mitchell in this offense.
What if Bryant Mitchell decided right now? What if Bryant Mitchell decided right now, where he was like, he's looking around, he's seeing the highlights, and like maybe they still have his rights or whatever, and he's like, yeah, why not? Hell yeah, I'll play 2 months worth of football. Like, if he were to show up the way that Kendall Wright apparently is showing up for the Argonauts and going to get involved rather quickly, and Derek Moncrief getting signed in Edmonton midseason as somebody who's just like, yeah, I'll keep playing football up here. Why not? Like, I don't see any reason why there aren't going to be more people that are in and around organizations on the fringes that are going to be like, sure, why not? And Brian Mitchell could be one of them.
Yeah, and they would probably go 12-2.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, they look amazing. 5-1, they're booming past their win total of 8. Anybody who bet that, you're going to bank it before October is over. Nothing has changed on the only reason that I doubt Winnipeg's ability to repeat as Grey Cup champions, right? Zach's taken some shots, and he's looked fantastic after them. He doesn't look like he's had any problems. But that still kind of hangs out there. It's just, it's in the distance. What if they don't have Zach Collaros, and don't tell me Sean McGuire threw one pass for 50 yards, because from a sneak formation, one-on-one on a 65-yard wide field, you better complete that 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And hashtag God bless Blaise Brown for making the tackle on that one. I think it was Blaise Brown in coverage. But goodness gracious, Zach is the straw that stirs the drink. He's currently the MOP of the league, and he is the guy. I pray this is the way. I pray they realize they are a passing team and not a running team, because Andrew Harris has been fine, but Zach and the receivers are what's moving that team up and down the field.
Yeah, I agree, but it's so interesting to me the way that 22 attempts, they don't want more than that. And they want to go 18. They would rather go, it feels like in Winnipeg, as an offensive philosophy, they would rather go 18 of 22 than 25 of 40. Like, they have more interest in just being highly efficient and running their, and even if that means that a couple of times a game you run the ball on 2nd and 4, or you run the ball on 1st and 10 and get nothing, and it puts you behind the sticks, and then whatever the situation is, if you rely on the run too much and you don't get the production that you need to move the sticks, they're like, cool, we'll punt, we'll play defense, we'll get a turnover, and we'll change field position periodically throughout the game. And then all we need is for Zach to throw 2 haymakers. Like, that's the formula. It's just how they want to play football, and it's winning and it's doing its thing. So I'm with you. It'd be fun to see them open it up, because Kenny Lawler, I think, is one of the best aerobatic jump ball catchers in the league right now. And Darvin Adams, like, being able to do what he does consistently, Wolotarski playing his role. Dembski, I got to say this about Nick Dembski. And I was going to tweet this out, but I wanted to say this for the podcast. First of all, I love him. I love him. I just respect his game so much. I think he's great. But something that I've picked up on with Dembski that I didn't realize until this game, because he was running in the open field so much. Nick Dembski is like the Monopoly man when he's running, right? Where it's just like, and the turnover of his leg starts to go. But the turnover and the speed for Dembski, I don't know what this is or how to define this, other than to say he's twice as fast with the ball in his hands than he is when he's running routes. Do you know what I'm saying, DT?
Yeah.
Like he'll run a 10-yard out, and he'll be like, get there, chop, 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 come out of the break, catch. Soon as the ball's in his hands, and he's just like, all of a sudden his rhythm speeds up. I don't know if it's a naturally ingrained thing where he has adrenaline that he gets a burst of something when the ball touches his hands, and I enjoy that so much. With that being said, God, to Milt Steagle's point on the panel, go score. Like, Nick, if you become a better finisher, Nick Dembski, you are going to have 5 to 10 touchdowns a year, any year you want, for the remainder of your time in the CFL, because he gets open and he's so good with yards after the catch and making people miss, except for when he gets anywhere remotely close to actually, it's like when you're watching Return Man and you're like, he's got one man to make miss. Oh, that's Nick Dembski. Every time he touches the football and breaks a play, is like, oh my God, what a great game. Wow, what a tremendous talent. He just has to, he didn't get into the end zone. I love watching him play. I just want him to finish because he's making so many great plays.
Can I tell you one thing I desperately want from Winnipeg, but I don't think I'm going to get?
5 defensive linemen that are all defensive ends in at the same time as a defensive sub package, because I'd be here for that, where we take out the tackles and we just line up across. Willie Jefferson is now your tackle, and we go Kongbo as the other tackle, and then Jeffcoat, like, line up Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat next to each other in a 5DN package would be my wish. But what's yours?
So with Justin Medlock, best kicker in the history of the CFL. I will not tolerate any slander to otherwise. He's unbelievable. Points above expected, just doubles anybody he played with in his era. Best kicker ever. My hope was that when they lost Medlock, it would make them more aggressive in plus territory, right? Because, we're on the edge of it. If this was Medlock, we would kick a 54-yard field goal because he's going to hit it 65, 70% of the time, and we won't care. But I'm like, okay, well, now that they're at 47, what I don't want you to do is take 3rd and 3 and make that a punting down, because there is nothing that bothers me more. There are things, world hunger, but there's not much that bothers me more than punting in plus territory as a religion, and stop it. So my hope was they're going to get more aggressive. You don't think Marshall, design a play for me? Zach Collaros in shotgun, 3x2. There's Kenny Lawler and Nick Dembski and Drew Wolotarski. Okay, somebody get open for 4 yards. They could do that in their bleeping sleep. Yeah. Be more aggressive with Andrew Harris can get 3 yards. Hell, they tried to sneak from the 3-yard line in the game against the Riders. I wanted to be more aggressive in plus territory at what would be pretty comfortably Medlock's range, but will not be Mark Leggio's range. And I pray Mark Leggio gets better because it's been pretty rough for him. I don't think that's going to be the way. I think they might just be naturally / sociopathically conservative in that and just go for the punt game. When, man, if you start making some of those third downs in plus territory, you will put 50 on the board with that offense.
Yeah, I'm with you absolutely on that one. I do love the idea of them being so deep that they just don't. Richie Hall doesn't know what to do with his defensive sub packages, where he's like, I'm stuck. I got all these guys in here. I got to find work for somebody. So, but let's wrap up the podcast here by bouncing around and looking at the games coming up this week, because it is a fun slate. It's a double Friday. It's a double Saturday. God, those triples on Saturdays, for some people, they're fun. For some people, they're exhausting. When I wasn't working in and around the game so much, I thought they were great as a fan. And then when you start working around the game closer, you're like, this is a lot. This is asking a lot of me as a human being to invest myself in this for the entire, especially when you got a young kid. You want to spend some time with him. It's tough to be like, hey, daddy's a write-off for the next 14 hours. See you Sunday when I'm exhausted. So we only have one more triple, thankfully, this entire CFL season. I looked it up because I needed to make sure that I was going to survive the CFL season, and that is, I think, October 23rd. Later in the season that we're going to end up having that. So, CFL highlights playing on the app in front of me. Jeez.
Kids get in the way, Marsh. There's where the religious folks can have it. Don't have sex. Watch triple header football on TSN. Boom,
triple header football is my sex to some people, so that's what they would say. But
BC Montreal is to me the most fascinating game of the week. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that to you?
Because I want to know what both these teams are about. We've talked about Montreal and where I think Montreal is. People to me are way higher on Montreal. Weren't they third in the CFL's power rankings fourth, pardon me, behind BC for some reason. I don't know what Montreal is. BC is a pretty good football team. Like if Mike, in a world where Mike Riley was 100%, they'd be second best team in the league. Maybe they can cover everybody. You've talked at length about Jordan Williams and what he's doing at that middle linebacker spot. Yeah. The absolute unknowns on that defensive line. Boom McGuacham, I believe, is third in the league in quarterback pressures. Like they are a good football team, and they're going to Montreal. This line as BC, it says here on the CFL site, as a 1.5 point favorite. I think it's the other way at sportsbooks, with Montreal being a favorite. I honestly don't know what this game is going to turn out to be, and it's the only one that I don't really have a feel on this week. I feel like I know what's going to happen in all three other games. Yeah,
it's interesting because I feel like the one thing I do know in this is that there will be vertical passing because Riley against Brendan Adams Jr. is going to make for some fireworks, I think, which is great, right? For a Saturday, 7 p.m., the sun's setting at Percival Molson. You got Riley in town. It's like an all-time great CFL. So, yeah, I'm down with that. I think that's a fun one for sure to look at. But for me, I mean, Kahari Jones being out and in isolation with the COVID stuff, how much does play calling change? Because obviously the logistics of this is not that he's sitting in his room and radioing in the call from his bed. So the way that Vernon has been able to push the ball so vertically and so forcibly vertically, even when it doesn't seem like it makes sense, whether it's off script or with a play call, like for them to be able to do that with a different play call, that's going to have a real impact on the game. So I'm going to have a close eye in this game on play calling tendencies, preferences, play calling packages, because Kahari can do everything that he wants to try and influence the game plan on the lead up to the game. Once the game starts, like that's going to be different, and how that is different and how Vernon responds to that, I think will be very telling in this matchup. Back on Friday night, the other 7 p.m. kickoff this week is the other early game, if you will call it that, is 7 p.m. Eastern, I should say, by the way, for all of our friends in Western Canada. But on Friday, it's Calgary at Hamilton. Dane on the injured list at this point. Evans, Jeremiah, who knows? And so could it be David Watford? I don't know what they're going to do in terms of building out a plan. I do know that Tommy Condell has a history of being very good of working around having to use backup quarterbacks, aside from maybe Jeff Matthews and Ja'Cory Harris. But that was, I think, out of his control at various points. But I know that he's good at building packages around that. If I was playing CFL Fantasy this week, Sean Thomas Erlington would be numero uno. He would be the priority for me. And again, Calgary and their defense, has been pretty good against the run for the most part this season. They haven't given up these huge gashes. I mean, James Wilder Jr. had a really good Labor Day Classic, but he's been doing that to pretty much everybody at this point in the season. So Sean Thomas Erlington, I think, is going to get a lot of touches, whether that is ground or air. I think he's going to be the play for people in fantasy. And I also think, looking at Calgary's side, Bo, and I don't know how you graded this out or whatnot for Bo's first quarter back as the starting quarterback in Calgary. Man, that was strange. That was missing he missed a corner throw on first down, and I'm pretty sure Dickinson called the exact same play out of a different formation, and he went back to the corner because the read led him there again. Man coverage, had the corner, missed it again, came to the sideline.
Yeah.
And Dave just gives him a look like, the hell's going on? When Bo missed a throw on second down the first time in the game, he shook his head and was smiling and laughing like, damn, I was off, man. I was off. The next drive, I think he goes 2 and out. He misses a throw on second down again. They went to the exact same camera shot of him walking off the field. Smile was gone. Like, no longer was it, it's great to be back, and I missed a throw. These things happen. He missed another throw, and you could see in his face, he's like, oh, damn. Okay. Like, I gotta figure this stuff out. And then you take the delay of game calls back to back, and then Dickinson jumps all over him for that. It was just, there was a lot of figuring it out. And so if Hamilton's figuring it out without Evans or Masoli, and Calgary is still kind of trying to figure it out, I guess, a little bit, even though they looked a lot better in that second half, then I mean, that one's kind of volatile too. It makes for 2 great games, honestly.
Yeah. All I could think was, remember the movie Tin Cup with Kevin Costner and Cheech Marin, where he loses his swing that day at the range? Like, a little chili dipper there. You make sure you do that at the Open. It really impresses him. And then he hits another one. He's like, Rome's, what's up? Like, there's Bo Levi Mitchell. Like, it's funny. It was funny for a second. Now I don't know what the hell's happening.
Yeah.
And I fear for my safety. Sean Thomas Erlington, 11 touches, 12 touches, 11 touches, 8 touches, 6 touches. What is Hamilton doing with running backs? Don Jackson was on for a game, and now he's off again. Yeah. Brandon Banks led them in carries one game.
Yeah, that was the fly sweep series. They went to a really heavy fly sweep series in that Labor Day game against Toronto. And to their credit, it worked. Like, that's what I say. Condell built stuff where, hey, I want to get this guy touches. I want to get him back into the rhythm of the offense. Let's do this. And he installs a package that week. It's 4 or 5 plays, runs it repetitively. As long as it's having success, he does. I did kind of laugh though that I don't think that play calls are necessarily personal. I think I read too much into this, but like Toronto Hamilton, it was so funny to me that there was one year where I believe it was 2017 when Toronto was in the East Final going up against Saskatchewan at BMO, and I was interested to see how Declan Cross, who I played with at McMaster, was being used. So I searched in the database for the CFL Declan Cross pass targets for the year. And essentially 90% of them were the exact same play where the ball's on the left hash and he comes in, and we used to call it like bomber the backside, right? So you're just plussing in to be next to the tackle. You chip the defensive end, you release back to the left flats away from the play into the boundary. Quarterback takes the ball, pumps like it's a tunnel screen to the right to the field, flips his hips back and dumps it back underneath. Nikola Kalinic got that exact play called for him by Tommy Condell for Hamilton in Toronto at BMO. And I had this weird flashback where I'm like, oh my God, that's the play that Toronto likes to run to Declan Cross. And then Toronto ran it the next series to Declan Cross. And I was like, okay, they're intimidating, or they're imitating each other at this point with some of their play calling. But yeah, they've been able to mix it up and get targets to some different people in different spots. But as it comes to Don Jackson, I have no idea. I really have no idea what's happening there. And it feels like I don't play a lot of the fantasy and all the rest, but if I were to, and I was looking at Hamilton's backfield situation without even looking at the analytics or the touches or the shares or any of that stuff, I would just go with Sean, because Sean's always been high value when he's healthy. And if he's healthy, he's going to get touches because Condell loves him, because any of the quarterbacks that go in know that he is guaranteed production. And so I don't know what Don Jackson's deal is. I don't know what the Ticats deal is with using him or not using him, but Sean is the guy there.
He should be. But Hamilton, I mean, my heart goes out to Hamilton they don't particularly seem to care about running backs too terribly much. So we're going to put this guy in. We'll use this guy. This is all good. We'll run it with somebody else. Heaven forbid, Braylon Addison limited at practice means he's back at practice. When he gets in, there's some carries. Yeah. Like, they're on the verge of something. If Posey, I haven't seen Posey status, but when he's back, week 7 might be too soon. But this is a team I fear if their quarterback situation is fixed with Dane Evans being back from injury. Because I don't know what Masoli's deal is whatsoever.
Yeah.
But is he ever playing again? I don't know. Week 12, week 14, if Dane's healthy and this offense is back, like Riders play them in week 16, and I figured that was going to be a very different team than the one they faced in week number 2. Kamar Jordan, you feel like 200? I feel like he's put up 180, whatever that was again.
Well,
Good Lord.
Doesn't Ambles lead the CFL as of right now when it comes to targets? I believe. Like I'm watching that game in Edmonton over the weekend, and he's getting everything. Like you can tell very quickly who Bo is comfortable with, and I think he's got some work to get on the same page with Huff. They were doing some hand signals after plays, and is that you or is that me, or did you mean to curl inside, or were you supposed to come back down your stem? And it seemed like he was trying to figure him out, but man, Bo knows Kamar Jordan, Bo knows Markeith Ambles.
Yeah. My prop wagers for who will lead the league in receiving are in the toilet at this point. Markeith Ambles, I have at 39 targets. Lawler, Kyron Moore at 38. Josh Huff at 36. 3 receivers in the top 5 from the Calgary Stampeders.
Here's a good targets. One. Here's a good one for you when it comes to league leaders on this stuff. In the top 10 of special teams tackles in the CFL, I believe 5 of them are Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Wait, what?
If you have, I should actually pull this up for you right now because I need to, you go ahead and pull up special teams tackles. Who are the league leaders as of right now? Updated standings, because I believe I heard this the other day talking to somebody, and they said that there's 5 Bombers in the top 10 of special teams tackles, I think. And there's also like 3 globals, I believe. Tyron Verde in Ottawa is up there. Les Moreau from Japan is up there in the conversation. I believe Theodric Hansen is up in the conversation. So the global guys are getting it done on specials, and the Bombers are getting it done on specials. And the Bombers happen to have globals that are very good, which means when you do the Venn diagram of that, that you have a lot of success for Winnipeg special teams. What that means.
Wow.
What that means for why Winnipeg has so many, I think it speaks to what we're talking about with the run game, where it's like they're happy to play the field position game even with below par punting, because they know their defense is just going to outlast people. So that's why they're less aggressive, even in the positive half of the field. And it just means a lot of punts and a lot of tackles.
In the top 9, 5 Bombers in the top 9 of special teams tackles. Mike Miller, the runaway league leader.
Yeah.
Theodric Hansen tied for 3rd on 8 tackles. Nick Hallett with 7, and Les Moreau, their other global player. 2 global players in the top 9 of tackles. He's got 6. That's a lot of punting and kicking. Well, those are your kickoffs too, right? When you're scoring points. But that's a remarkable stat.
But Winnipeg is mastering the global game right now. Like, let's just say that straight up, because there's a lot of places where they're like, I don't know, Australian kicker. Sure. It's like, I think Winnipeg has proven pretty clearly, you go out, you get yourself a physical linebacker style body that can run around on special teams and be an athletic beast.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make tackles for you. Like, you don't have to ingrain them into the CFL game. Well, here's how the waggle works. And let's make sure, how many global receivers do we have making an impact right now that have been either drafted, signed, any of that stuff? It's like, it's not really a thing, but we keep bringing in kickers, which honestly, like, I kind of like the kicking stuff, whether it's Stefan Flintoff or if it's Jake Ford has been some fun, but there's some good ones out there that have been nice. But to me, it's like, man, I would do it Winnipeg's way right now. Like, that's just another thing that they have in terms of the big picture of why they're playing so well right now. I feel like they've got it going on. So anyways, there's a fun little stat.
It's such a minor edge, right? Having an extra guy. But when teams are carrying guys, the Riders carried a kicker for the first 1, 2, 3 games, and he never kicked the ball, right? And you're like, okay, well, we're accepting 0 value from our global player. They now have a kid in Chris Azela who's come in that they go, he's a fullback, but he's 6 foot and 250. I wonder if he can rush the passer. And they're going to see, right? To get some kind of, if you can get one point of value from your global player, a guy you are obliged to have on your roster, that's so much better than having a depth kicker. Like, you see, you're not taking your regular kicker off to put some guy unless it's a 60-1 game. So yeah, you're right. Like you get a little value. And honestly, I've never played special teams in the CFL. It seems pretty violent.
Yes.
And if I can not have my starting linebacker taking a couple extra shots on special teams, I like it. I like the thought of that.
You win in the margins, I think, at times when we're getting out the sticks to measure whether or not you got 6 inches or not on a quarterback sneak. Why would we not be looking to win in the margins when it comes to roster construction by using the globals in a way we're actually utilizing them? So
can we talk? I thought about this on the way home. A quick talk about quarterback sneaks for a sec.
Yeah, sure.
So in the Banjo Bowl, the Bombers sneak the ball from like the 2.5 yard line, and my partner Luke Molinder goes, that's weird. I think they're setting something up. Later in the game, McGuire comes back in. They're going right to left. Quarterback sneak formation. And then he drops straight back and throws a bomb down the field because it's one-on-one coverage on a 65-yard wide field. Why aren't teams just naturally have 2 defenders in there? Like I thought about it on the way home. If you have 2 defenders watching the pass, okay, now he's thrown into a double team and now he's pooched. That play never happens. But you're not sacrificing that much in the sneak game. If he gets 1 yard or 2 yards, big hairy deal. It's a first down. Yeah. And your sneak efficiency in the CFL has to be 90%.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look. Why not? Why isn't it cover 2 on those? And we just use 10 guys to protect this.
Totally fair. We used to have a saying when I was at McMaster that they would always yell down the bench, whether it was from Greg Knox, who's now with the Ottawa Redblacks. John Behe was our offensive coordinator. Steph Patacic, former CFLer, of course, is a receiver that's still the head coach at Mac. And he would always say, don't defend the first down. Like, who cares? Like, like how many times, as you say, the success rate, how many times are you likely to stuff somebody 3-4 times I understand if it's on the goal line, sure, sell out. Like that's a matter of points.
Absolutely.
But if we're talking about middle of the field between the 30s for each team, and there's a team going for a 3rd and 1 and they're sneaking it, it's like, yeah, it'd be great to get a stop and get people out there. But how often is a defensive back the reason that you're getting the stop? Like it's usually a defensive lineman who's submarining underneath and changing the direction of the pile and forcing him back, and he tries to reach the football out and a linebacker punches it out. Or to your point, the DBs are not doing anything. So why are we defending the first down with defensive backs? They're not going to make a difference. They should be focused on the pass in case it does happen. But the honest answer is they fall asleep at the wheel sometimes. Like they just get into the rhythm of this is a play off for me. Let's just line up. They see a formation. They see people come. I honestly don't know how much time defensive coordinators spend on educating people on the likelihood that, they actually don't always sneak it here. They just say, hey, it feels like they line up in this formation, you line up in that formation, we smash our bodies together, and then they win because they get a yard off the ball and they get to know when the football is actually coming up. So to me, that's the oversimplified answer.
Yeah. Over 5 years, Winnipeg was the best sneak team. 92% of the time they would convert. So that's 0, 1, and 2 yards. BC was the worst at 81%. If you're BC and you're the worst sneak team and 81% becomes, you let them just have it 90% of the time, who cares? Because risk versus reward is exactly what your coaches were capturing there. Yeah, when it matters, we'll care. But you know what? This is, at some point, 3rd and 0 was a foregone conclusion virtually in the CFL. So let's not get roasted and look silly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my short yardage.
I like it. Give me your 30 second to a minute thoughts here on Toronto, Saskatchewan, because I know you're going to be talking about it forever on CKRM and the pregame show and during the game and all the rest. So what is your condensed idea of what this game is looking like?
This is the most pivotal game the Riders will play maybe until the Edmonton series late in the season. 4-2 and 3-3 at this moment are drastically different because 3-3 would be 3 straight losses. And yes, they'd be 2 teams that I think are very good, but 3 straight losses. And if there were quite people, the Twitter sentiment was out there, oh, is it time to go to Isaac Harker, which is bonkers. And no, it's not. But if injury forces you there, that's the deal. The Riders having lost 3 games in a row with what's been going on and the injury troubles they have. And then what's on the other side, 3 games, BC and 3 games against Calgary. Yikes. This is an absolutely critical game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, less so for the Argos. Absolutely for the Riders.
I just want to watch Sean Oakman. That's my thing. Is he's he's been doing some crazy stuff the last couple of weeks against Hamilton, where it's like you put Brandon Revenberg somewhere down here underneath his armpit, trying to push him, and then you put Darius Sirocco somewhere over here around the middle of the ribs, and they're both pushing on him, and it's not working. Why can't we stop this human being from going forwards? So it's unfortunate that he was the one that ended up injuring Dane Evans, because obviously he wasn't trying to. He was just trying to get to the quarterback, and he's been really good the last couple of weeks. So Logan Furland, congrats. Sean Oakman, you get to deal with him a little bit coming up on Friday night. But make sure that everybody is checking out DT there on CKRM. And then the last one, Winnipeg at Edmonton. Collaros and crew go on the road to take on the Elks. For me in this one, I think what I'm intrigued to see is whether or not Winnipeg's extremely straightforward, aggressive rushing approach was because let's be real about this. You know this better than anybody, DT, from the work that you do and also from calling the games. Winnipeg and Saskatchewan have this dynamic where it's like, we probably don't have to do this endlessly and just bang into each other, but we're gonna. Because we're Winnipeg and we're Saskatchewan and it's Labor Day and it's the Banjo Bowl and who's tougher and it's the reason that all that crap spilled over in the end zone is because there's just this mentality of I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm tougher than you, we're going to run it more than you. And I'm wondering whether or not Winnipeg goes into this game with Edmonton and says, yeah, that's who we are. We're going to do that against everybody. It's not just a Saskatchewan thing. Or do they go in and just throw a complete curveball? Like maybe they just show up and they're like, hey, Zach, this week, just to mix it up, just to see, 40 attempts. Go crazy. Like, I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I wouldn't anticipate that being what they're going to do. I think they are what they are at this point. But if they want to change a pace, Edmonton might be the game to do it. Because if Edmonton scores a little bit with Walker and Ellingson, I would be interested to see what Winnipeg looks like chasing, needing to throw down 10 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. That would require them to throw the ball to Greg Ellingson, though, which
that's true.
I don't know. I don't know. I legit have no idea what's happening with throwing the ball to Greg Ellingson.
The most disappointing thing of this entire CFL season is not Greg Ellingson not getting the football enough. It's that I feel just in my soul so bad for the marketing people of the Edmonton Elks, because there's such a great campaign here for Greg Elkingson. And I want them to be able to access the name brand notoriety of the Elks. You made this choice. You have Greg Ellingson. There's some wordplay that can happen there. There's great posters that can go up around town. But if you don't throw in the football, the marketing department can't use Elkingson. And that's disappointing to me.
Darrell Walker, like, come on. There's a few of them there. Tavon Elk Smith, like, it's not quite as good. Armont Elk Edwards, I don't know, or Armonte Elkwards, I don't know.
Hey, now we're talking.
Those big two, those are just absolutely naturals. James Wilder's going for 100 yards in this game. Yeah. I don't know if it will help them win. No, I thought Edmonton was going to be really, really good, and I don't know how did they lose to Calgary. How are you so nice one week and then just a tire fire the next week? I don't understand what's happening there. And they need to pile up some wins, right? Because it's still a ways off. It's in November, but that 3 games in 7 days thing is going to absolutely wreck them standings wise.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna get beat in Saskatchewan, then they're gonna go to Toronto on 2 days rest, and they're gonna go to BC on 2 days rest. They're gonna be rubbing their eyes, don't even know where they woke up. And I would rub my eyes harder, but my arms really hurt from getting beat up 2 days ago in a football game because we're pro football players. They need to pile up some wins now and I don't know, because crossover, honestly, this might be the big thing. The crossover may well not be available this year because Montreal plays Ottawa 4 times. So there's going to be a lot of wins in the East.
If I am BC, Calgary, or Edmonton, I'm not banking on the crossover being available at this point. I think Saskatchewan and Winnipeg are going to end up 1 and 2. I don't know how the seeding is going to shake out in the rest of the West, but I'm with you. This is not a year like the past 3 CFL seasons we've seen. It has been 3, right? Because BC came over in 18, Edmonton came over in 19, and I believe in 17 it was the Riders who ended up going into Ottawa. And so, it might even go back further than that. Like, I know there was another BC game against Hamilton, might have been 16 or 15, but it's typically it plays out that way. But whether it's because of a shortened season, less games, whether it's because of improve parity in the East, but then being able to get a couple of wins against I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that's something that they can count on, and I don't think it would be wise to believe that that's the way to go. But that is the breakdown for us this week. Anything else you want to throw out here, DT? Let people know where they can catch you throughout the week, all the rest.
620 CKRM, the Sports Cage. Of course, Friday night football on CKRM. Saskatchewan Roughriders with a pivotal game against the Argos. Let's see, Saskatchewan time, that one's 7:45. So we're talking 9:45 East, with the minor overlap with the early game for folks who watch it on TV, oddly. But yeah, tune in on the radio. It's just better on the radio.
Yeah, that is true. I'm a big fan of radio broadcasts. I actually listened to the Florida State radio broadcast this week when they lost to Jacksonville State, and the call of it was so good because it's just, well, here they go. I guess they've got an opportunity. Takes the shot down to the, oh dear, cut at the 20. Oh no, he cuts him. Oh, and that's it. That's it. Florida State falls. Florida State falls to Jacksonville State, which, by the way, is not actually Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville State, that university, is from Alabama. So they're not even like the good of the Jacksonvilles. And but anyways, the radio broadcast of that was fantastic. So I hope that people will enjoy 620 CKRM, as he says, on Friday night as the Argos go in. That one's going to be a lot. That doubleheader is fantastic. Hamilton, Calgary, and then going right into your game out there in Saskatchewan, I think is going to be great stuff. Be heard on the field with Fox 40, Sonic Blast CMG, 120 decibels of sound power. The Sonic Blast can be heard over even the loudest of crowds. Just don't use it when you're sitting in the crowd, please. Shop now at fox40shop.com and use the promo code CFP15 at checkout for 15% or more. And we have a great partnership that we have announced here. I want to let people know about. If you didn't see it yesterday when it came out on All Canadian, the podcast, and all that good stuff, the OUA, Ontario University Athletics, has signed on with us. They begin their season coming up this weekend. We want to make sure you're aware that OUA.tv is free. All football games streaming live and on demand for you. OUA.tv is the best place to go. OUA.ca, of course, for your stats, standing scores, etc. They got everything there for you. But OUA.tv, the best place to catch all the games coming up this weekend as they get going. And man, it starts off with a doozy, Mac Western. So Dwayne Ford and I will be texting, I believe, on Saturday afternoon to be able to find out how that one's going to play out. But DT, good as always, my man. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. And have yourself a hell of a call on Friday night, okay?
Thanks, brother.